My name's Monk Rowe. I'm privileged to be here at the Pizzarelli home in Saddle River, New Jersey. And you wanted to start with some true or false questions, okay?
Right.
All right, here's one. The life of a musician is easy.
False.
Why?
Not so bad.
It's not so bad.
Well, I mean, we're expected to do so much every time we appear somewhere, especially on a recording session. And sometimes you don't meet those specifications. You know.
Sometimes who doesn't make
Well,
the
you don't yourself. They want certain things, and you have to be ready to do that. So that's a tough job for a musician.
Mm-hmm. How do you get that preparation? You just learn it on the job?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They want more than what you have.
Okay. And sometimes do you have producers who don't really know what they want?
And you give them more than they think they're getting.
Okay. Well, I really wanted to talk some more today about just following up. I know you did an awful lot of studio work. And
Right.
Ruth, you were talking about waiting for the husbands to get home.
The water was still boiling.
What was that like?
It was lonely. I mean, I had the children, thank goodness,
Mm-hmm.
but he was gone all week long, and then maybe Saturday night we could get to go out if we had babysitters. But I remember Dominic Ortiz and his wife, and somebody would have a party. It was like, wow, we're going out tonight.
That's interesting that you say on Saturday night, because you know where I'm from in upstate New York, Saturday night is usually a night you'd be working.
You're working.
Oh.
But during the studio years you did, that might not have been the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unless you had a jazz gig or something.
Well, it wasn't every Saturday night.
Right. Okay. Right.
But when the wives got together, it was so much fun, and we could all give our point of view about this.
Uh-huh.
I hate to say our husbands, but we'd always give them we'd always start to talk. Well, what does he do? Well, he does this, you know. Well, oh no, he never does that. So we all had a little clique going there.
The quote glory years of the studio. What years did that encompass?
For me?
Yes.
Oh, I would say from late 50s, all of the 60s, into the 70s, like 71, 72.
Did you decide to get out of it, or did it just
No,
sort of...
it left me.
It dried up. And why did it dry up?
Change.
I don't know why, because all of a sudden there weren't any calls coming in. You know, I was just sitting home waiting for calls, and they never showed up. That's why I started playing live again.
Oh, that's so interesting to me.
Well, it was, I figured out that the life of a musician comes in phases, starting with the big bands for me. And I thought when the band broke up, that was the end of the world. It wasn't. I went on staff. I did the Kate Smith show. When I was on a Kate Smith show, I subbed for the guitar player on the Three Sons, Morty Nevins. And I took his place, I put his tux on, and I appeared as him. And they ended up playing with them for 2 years. Went to Vegas for the first 6 weeks we were married. We were in Vegas, and we played from midnight to 5 in the morning.
How did you two meet?
Well, my sister was a nurse at St. Joe's Hospital, and she was working at the emergency room. And Ruth, baby here, was there too.
I worked there with his sister.
Yeah,
I
so
see.
she saw me, and she fell in love with me.
No, that's not quite.
Oh, I thought we'd get a couple of those moments here. Okay, so Ruth, how did you meet?
I was a registered nurse. Oh. You okay? At St. Joseph's Hospital in Patterson, New Jersey, and I had just graduated. It was in 1951, 52, something like that. And I happened to look, I was on duty, and I happened to look up, and sitting on the bench, they had a little bench outside the admitting part. And I had to go out and say, "May I help you?" So I walked out, and this wonderful looking man, with all beautifully dressed, and I went out and I said, "May I help you?" Oh, and he said, "I'm waiting for my sister." "Your sister?" Marie Pizzarelli." "Oh, yes, just a moment, please." So I went back, I said, "Marie, is that your brother?" She said, "Oh, is he here?" "Yeah." Oh, okay." Left to go. Next day, he was back again. Oh, so I walked out because Marie told me he was a celebrity. So I walked out and said, "Your sister told me you're a celebrity and you worked with Vaughn Monroe, my favorite, my sister and I." Oh, I was bliss. And so after that, I was still living in the nursing school home, and the phone rang while I was waiting for my brother to come pick me up and to go home, and the phone rang, and it was Marie saying, and I happened to be there. I went to the phone. Marie said, "Oh, Ruth, my brother wants to talk to you," meaning Mr. Pizzarelli. And so he said, "Hi, Ruth, would you like to go out tonight?" I said, "Oh, I'd love to, but I can't go because my brother is picking me up with his car to take me home." And you know what Bucky said? "Tell him to go home." So I did.
Nice.
And that was our first date, and it was wonderful.
Nice.
It was very, everything was good. My mother gave us a little trouble, but because he was a musician, you know, and marijuana was in the thing,
Oh.
and she, Gene Krupa.
Oh, Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
He had been arrested,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
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 Very sad.
Hey, but what about also the, let's say, the prospects of being a musician? You know, are you going to be able to make a good living?
Mhm.
Was that an issue?
Well, you had to be with a big band that did a lot of work.
Okay, so that was 1940. What would that have been?
About 51, I think
Oh,
we got married in
51.
51.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, I was finished with the big band. The band, Vaughn broke up then.
Yeah, I mean the
And
big
then
band here.
I went back to New York, and luckily I got a job as a staff musician.
And 3 sons.
For
Playing-
what?
Playing for the Kate Smith show,
So what network was that on?
NBC.
Mm-hmm. Wow. How did you get that?
We did a radio show with Vaughn Monroe. We had violins just for the show. And I met one of the cello players on the street. And he said to me, Brownie, his name was Brown. He said, they're looking for a guitar player at NBC. Tell him I sent you up. And I used his name. I got the job without auditioning or anything.
Wow.
And I joined I did it for a whole year, her last year on television.
And you were expected to be able to sight read,
Oh, yeah.
chart chords, and
Yeah. Little solo here and there. You know.
Mhm. What do you remember? What that paid?
$250 a week.
That's not bad.
That was good then.
Yeah. 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Yeah. Wow. And
Whether
me-
you were there or not.
whether you were there or not?
Well, if you had a day off or if you had
Oh.
a week off, if she
Okay.
went to California, you still got paid as a staff musician.
Yes. And meanwhile, you have a growing family,
Yeah.
right? So were there tough years financially?
No, I don't think so. Not with that kind of a gig. That solved all the problems.
That's nice.
We never fought over it, over money. We were very happy.
Did you ever have a moment in your life from the time of Vaughn Monroe on where you felt, I have to do something else?
No, no. I always wanted to play the guitar, and that was it. I had never thought of any other thing. I couldn't do anything else but play the guitar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to play a little Name That Tune,
Okay.
all right? See how long it'll take you to recognize.
Wanderer, take one.
These lyrics get me.
Who is it?
You know who this is now. That's you playing.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, the one that's Dion.
Dion.
Oh.
Okay. So,
Well, we did those tunes, never thinking, and when we heard them again, we didn't believe it. We were on a record. That's how many record dates we did.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me more about that because I think it's just really
Oh,
very
it
interesting.
is. They hired Al Caiola, me, and I think it was Dick Hyman or somebody playing the piano. Just to be on the record date.
Who hires you for this kind of thing?
The company. The company.
The record company,
Yeah,
or
record company.
and there's
What
a
was the name of the
contractor.
record company.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Anyway, they said, well, that's what we want. And Dion would come and dictate what he wanted us to do.
Who would?
Dion,
Oh,
he
okay.
was a guitar player too.
Yeah, all right.
He had a couple of strums that he showed me, and I did, you know. And he was very good at that.
So on the date there would have been a drummer. You remember
Yeah.
who played on
Oh
that?
yeah, Panama.
Panama.
Francis, yeah.
Okay. And a bass player. What kind of bass would it have been?
Frank Carroll, upright.
Upright. And a couple guitars.
Yeah,
And you just ran the tune down.
that's all.
Was he singing? When you-
Yeah, he sang.
It was all live.
Yeah, he was good. He was a top-rate professional singer.
Mm-hmm. Was there overdubbing to be done because like
A
there's
little.
background vocals and
little
stuff,
here
and there's a
there,
sax
but
solo
no,
in there?
No.
Okay.
King Curtis played the sax.
You know, you see the videos of these bands, and they have all these young men playing. So most of those guys weren't on their records, right? When you see the album cover
Yeah.
of Dion and the Belmonts or whatever, or you see a video of them like on the Oldies channel, and they're playing the song, they might be playing it live, but most of those fellas weren't on the
no,
record,
no.
right?
No, they just showed a band, that's all.
Okay. So why didn't the record companies have the band come in and play? I mean, this could be an obvious question, but
For the picture or for the
for
sound?
for the record, why did they hire you guys instead of the guys in the band in Dion's band?
Well, we were hot. Well, we made a lot of records, so they said, get that guy that does all the records.
Hmm.
That's the way it works.
Okay. So Ruth, what kind of when Bucky came home, either that night after a day in the studios or the next morning, did you do like, well, how was your day? What happened yesterday? Did you do that kind of thing?
No, I didn't do that kind of thing. I I had the kids running, you know, and I had to go food shopping. I had to find out what he was going to do. Was he coming home tonight, tomorrow? And now that's what I did. I had to take him to school.
Do you remember what kind of event in his day might have come up as something that was really interesting? What might he have talked about that was worth significant, that was worth hearing about?
Sinatra, I guess.
Yeah, maybe a record day with Frank Sinatra.
It took that much to get to Sinatra.
No, but when John was born,
Oh,
I was doing an album with
Panama
Francis.
Uh-huh.
And that day that John was born, we had the wrong music for the band that was there. We were supposed to have strings. We had a brass band there, and naturally, we had to shift gears, you know, and they had to go get all the music for the band that was supposed to be on the record, as opposed to what was there.
I see.
So naturally, I missed the whole birth of all this.
See what he was getting to?
You weren't there when John was born.
No, I could have been, but
Oh, he comes into the room.
late.
You can turn it off if you want.
That's all right.
But he comes into the room, and did you have the baby or something like that? I said, yeah, we had a boy.
Oh.
And so that was the beginning, and then we had Martin after that. So we had the two girls first, and then the two boys.
I
But
see.
I know I think I even spoke to Milt about it, or one of them. Said, you know, Panama Francis. Yeah, I said, yeah, you know, I had the baby, and you know.
Bucky was with you,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You know, nowadays we're so used to being able to connect immediately. You get your cell phone and you could at least say, I'm not going to get there, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case back then.
I was there already with the wrong music,
Uh-huh.
so that made a big delay.
I see.
When they corrected it,
Yeah.
I missed the.
Logistically, I picture you and that crew going from one place to another in Manhattan. Did you have instruments and amps waiting for you there?
We had amps because all of the guitar players got together and decided to supply every studio with 3 amplifiers, amp pegs. We knew the guy who made them, you know, he was good.
Oh, okay.
So we all got together and we had a slush fund and we bought amps for every studio.
Wow.
That stopped us from carrying a guitar and a banjo and a ukulele and an amp.
Yeah. You know, Panama Francis said something about some people didn't like the fact that he was playing rock and roll. The jazz people would make fun of him or would look.
Oh yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, you know, he's a rock and roller.
Do you think some of them were jealous that he was making good money
Well,
doing
he
that?
was making good money, but he was a good drummer. But you take a guy like Pretty Purdy, he was a good drummer no matter where he was.
Mm-hmm.
Rock and roll or swing, he could do everything.
He said some nice things about you, you know.
Who?
Bernard Purdy.
Oh yeah.
He did. He said that you sort of saved him a few times. I think because he could get like, he had high opinions, right?
Yeah.
In the studio, like this should be done this way.
Yeah.
I don't know. He gave me the impression that you helped him not get in trouble.
Yeah, well, in other words, when I heard him play on a ship, he was playing in a jam session one night. I said, who the hell is that drummer? It was Pretty Purdy,
Mm-hmm.
and he was swinging. So we used him on a record day,
I see.
John and I. He played Sing, Sing, Sing. It's unbelievable.
Oh.
He knew it backwards.
All right, I'm going to try another tune on you here. I'm just going to give you...
She was afraid.
Remember that one? You don't remember what... You...
To come out of the locker. She was as nervous as she could be. She was afraid to come out of the locker. She was afraid.
You told me that you played on this song.
What she wore.
It was an itsy bitsy.
Oh, yeah, it's a busy. Yeah.
Okay, so you do this date. Did you... I mean, that's kind of a corny song,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was. That's what the business was.
When you guys had a break, let's say you had 2 hours, and I know you usually went to practice your acoustic guitar, but if you were hanging out in a bar or something, did you talk about this music?
No. No, we never did. We didn't even know what we did. And then when it came out, it was a big hit. I said, wow. Wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And
Because
it,
we did it every day. Every day. Well, we made demos. The demos were what they used for a real track.
oh, right, they just were doing these scratch things, and then they ended up using
Yeah,
it.
when the songwriters wrote the song, we had to go do what they call a demo. We paid $30. And then we'd give it to the publisher. The publisher would, if the demo was real good, they'd say to the arranger, do it like this.
Oh, that is so interesting. It's like
Yeah.
backwards almost.
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, they use the sound of the demo on the track.
Wow. Okay, so then a couple months later, you hear this thing on the radio,
Yeah.
and you go, gee, that sounds
Yeah,
familiar. And you're playing on it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But you didn't make any more money
No.
if a song became a hit.
No, we made a lot of nothing.
Nothing. Wow. Ruth, do you remember, like, you might be in a car, and Bucky might say, oh, I played on that?
She would.
Once in a while, not very often.
Welcome to ask a question.
What was your what was your best time? What was your heyday or your or is it now?
When we went 6 weeks to Europe with Benny,
Yeah,
Bucky and
that was
I and the
it.
band, and my mother took care of the children. We lived across the street then,
Oh.
and I was so homesick. So I called her home from England. I said, Ma, if you want me to come home, I'm here in London and I can get a flight home. She said, Ruth, stay, have a good time, enjoy. We're fine. She wouldn't let me go home. I wanted to go home.
Oh.
I was homesick.
Oh.
Well, we
When was
did
this?
that.
When was this?
26 cities
What?
in Europe with an all-English band
uh,
with Benny.
What was it, in the late 50s or early 60s,
I think it was 70.
70s? I'll have to get...
So the kids were,
They were okay.
They were
all going to
okay,
school.
yeah,
Right.
They
yeah.
were
Sure.
babies, but they went to school right here in town.
Uh-huh.
And my mother loved it. And even the kids said they had such a good time with her. And they'll never forget it, you know.
uh-huh.
So, and 6 weeks, and we had it was really great. Benny was very nice to us, and he visited us after. He
Yeah, he
came
came.
to this
He
house.
slept there a few times.
Yeah.
So that was one of the good old days. Were there bad old days?
No, I don't think so.
No. There wasn't, like,
No.
tough years. I mean,
No.
We
you're
just,
in.
you know, we
Well,
just
we
knew.
went from one phase to another. That was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. For you, Ruth, it was pretty much the same.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We both seem to know this is his work. We have the children, and this is our life.
Right.
And now, so we really didn't complain.
No, never.
I must say, we really, or fought or anything. But everybody we all got along, even the kids. Kids were great. And they didn't get to see him that often.
Mm-hmm.
And they just basically understood what was going on, and it was okay.
Dad's got a gig,
Yeah, that's it.
right.
right?
That's it.
Yes, yeah. He's working for us. Look how we have a nice home, and we're doing well. Our health is good. We couldn't complain about anything, really.
Mhm.
Did I ever complain?
No.
Thank you.
What would have impressed, let's say, during the years when most of your kids were like junior high age? Was there anything you were doing that would impress them?
That would impress.
That would impress the kids?
Oh well, look what happened.
Well, we played for the president, a couple of presidents,
Uh-huh.
and it was with Reagan first, with Sinatra, and with Benny Goodman, sextet, Buddy Rich playing drums, Milt Hinton, Hank Jones, piano, and then another one was with what was it?
Bertini.
Oh, Bertini.
That was with Sinatra.
That was with Sinatra,
Bertini?
the
Bertini.
president of Italy.
Oh.
He was a guest. So Tony Mottola and I got together and we made up an Italian medley, you know. And that was big. I have a picture of that,
Nice.
a movie of it.
Oh.
And
You
then-
know, you mentioned the Italian thing, and I thought of you both on Christmas Day, because I put on John's Christmas CD, and I remember when I put it on, I was thinking, I wonder what it's like in the Pizzarelli house today. Do you have big gatherings?
Well, we used to have fish dinners, I know, on Christmas Eve.
Uh-huh.
That was a
Well, that
big thing. My sister used to make 12 different fish.
But the next day, after dinner, we would all sit in the living room. We had the piano there. John had the guitar. Martin had the bass. And Mary would play the guitar, the piano. And John he's telling a story, and Mary's playing the background on the
Yeah,
piano.
oh, wow.
I wish we had it recorded, because it was so funny, and we all of us will never ever forget it. So we all try every year. We sing carols and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, but that was the funniest thing. John can be very funny.
Yes. He does.
And Martin gets a chance to play the bass. So it was.
Did you have misgivings about the children taking up this life?
Oh, no, not at all.
Not at all.
No, no.
Is that true, Ruth?
I didn't.
About, your own children becoming musicians or deciding to try to make a living in it.
Oh, they're doing very well, really. So, and the girls, they're not musicians, but they're doing okay. I think the boys are happy doing what they're doing, and I think it's just meant to be, because
Yeah.
his uncles and
Yeah.
everything. It's a thing.
But
Just
your family was musical also?
Yes.
my family.
No, my family.
Your family?
My family,
about your
my
family?
two uncles.
Yeah.
Yeah, his
Bobby
uncles,
and
yeah.
Peter Dominic.
Right.
No, mine were not.
Okay. So I just wondered if they had you're marrying a musician, with,
I had a little tough there with my mother for a while.
yeah.
Because of the things that were in the newspaper, Gene Krupa, for instance.
Yeah.
And that was but I must say, he handled it beautifully.
All right.
He really did.
This may be an obvious question, but why, during the 40s and 50s especially, musicians, especially jazz musicians, had that reputation? You know, they either drank or they were doing drugs or whatever.
Right.
Why? Why did they do it, or why was it?
I know. Every time a big band had a day off, they all got into trouble.
Oh.
Because all the junkies would come and serve them for nothing.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of big bands, a lot of those guys died early. That's my conception.
Mm-hmm. Because there was people out there waiting just to.
Yeah, waiting for you to show up. When you were working, you couldn't get into trouble. You had to play.
I see.
But you had a day off. Forget it.
Okay, well, when I came in, I saw this music by Mario Tedesco. This acoustic
Castellanova.
Castellanova. A nice Irish for you.
Newcastle.
Right?
Newcastle.
Well, it made me. It reminded me of this. See if you recognize this one. Did you get it yet? That's you on acoustic guitar.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
What am I playing?
It's
What am I playing? Oh. Never saw it. Yeah.
that was kind of a different date.
Yeah, well, they asked me to do something without the music, and that's what I did.
You mean you had no music?
Well, we had just a chord,
Chord charts.
but they wanted something, and that's what I worked up.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, do you recall coming home from? Was that like a New York date?
Yeah. I was an overdub. She
Oh,
had
was it-
already made the record,
Oh, it was an overdub.
and they wanted something different.
Okay. Were you hearing her singing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I played like I was accompanying her.
Oh. See, that's the backstory. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. Did you come home and say, "I just played on a hit"?
No.
Have you ever known you were playing on a hit?
No.
Oh, gee, that's just so. That's very. I think
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
And with, who's the fellow who played the piano that you worked with also? You know?
Ray Charles?
Ray Charles, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. You played.
You played on
Yeah.
Georgia.
George on my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what was so special about what you played? Do you remember? Because you
I
told
just
me.
played rhythm on it,
Yeah.
on that with on George on my mind. Just boom, chink, boom, chink. And Les Paul called me and said, "Boy, is that you on that record?" I said, "Yeah." Well, he loved it.
Was the whole group there? I mean, because that song had strings on it and all.
Yeah.
It was recorded live.
I don't know. You know, there's some doubt of who made the record. I think it was either Al Cohen or somebody like that.
Ralph Burns, maybe.
Yeah, Ralph Burns.
Yeah.
And those guys used to farm stuff out, but they had so many dates that they would call two other arrangers, "Help me out here," you know. That's the way it was.
And most of those arrangers and most of those musicians, including yourself, came out of the big band era, right?
Right. Everyone.
Everyone. Was there a? Do you remember any conversation about having to play different before the rock and roll dates, or did it
Well,
just?
we knew it was a different kind of sound. You had a guitar with a high pitch, electric sound, real high. You know how to do it. Sometimes we go on a date, and we'd all make up a thing. One would do bum 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 with your wrist on the strings. You get a real muffled sound.
Uh-huh.
That was the most popular way of doing it.
Huh. Has a discography been kept on you about? I mean, I know you can see like all the albums under your name. You know, all the Arbors records and all that.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of record?
No.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe it might. I couldn't tell.
Sounds like some kind of project for somebody to
Yeah.
do. You know?
I bet somebody does.
Yeah. Okay, so this is sort of an obvious question, but why did you and Barry Galbraith and Milt Hinton, how come you were on the A team? Why was it that you got the calls?
I don't know, because I thought maybe because I played rhythm guitar, and there was always room on a recording section to play rhythm, and that's what I was known for. Al Caiola and Tony Mottola were known for as soloists. George Barnes as a soloist. If they didn't need a soloist, they wouldn't hire him. They just had a rhythm guitar. That's one thing they had to have on a record. Boom, chink, boom, chink. And that I knew I could do very well.
Did Freddie Green hip you to that?
Well, I followed what Freddie did, but I also knew what Barry Galbraith did, and he was with Claude Thornhill's band, and it was superb playing. And I got to know him very well.
Mm-hmm.
And we played together. We were on the Wrigley spearmint gum commercial. Double your pleasure, or something like that.
Double your pleasure, double your fun
Yeah.
with
Double mint gum.
double mint gum.
We made a lot of money on that day.
How come?
Well, they play it. Super Bowl Sunday came around. We ended up with $5,000 in a mailbox.
I was gonna ask you, do checks still show up for things you did years ago?
Yeah, no, not like that, and not with that price tag on it.
Okay, but do you get some mysterious check sometime?
Yeah. Well, when I did a lot of soap opera. What was the Irish one there? Ryan's Hope.
Oh, yeah.
And they released all the stuff that I was on, and they played them all again. Made a lot of money.
Nice. It's nice when the system works like
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
Like ASCAP or whatever it is. Yeah. So Ruth, did you get to go on these jazz party things? Did you want to?
Oh, yeah, there were Texas.
Yeah, that's still going.
Odessa, right?
Odessa
Odessa,
and Midland,
Texas,
and
yeah.
Midland, yeah, it's the same one.
We met
Yeah.
a lot of friends, and we always had a good time. Very nice. We went a long time.
Yeah,
And the one in
Denver.
Denver,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was.
they made that movie that we've watched.
Yeah.
That was an incredible assemblage of musicians.
Did you see that movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I could not believe.
Yeah,
the
Ruby Braff
names that
starts it off, doesn't he?
Yeah. And was there people like let's say Phil Woods? If Phil Woods came to that thing, would you guys be saying he's a little modern for this?
No,
stuff?
I wouldn't say that.
No.
The way he played, that was great.
Yeah. And now, what, you know, when I was listening to you talk with Julia and Dick Hyman, Julia was talking about the studio days, and she said to Dick, "You never turned anything down."
That's right.
And Ruth, you said to Bucky, "And neither did you."
Yeah.
But John said in an interview I saw, let's see if I can find this. "My father worked his ass off, but he never did anything he didn't like."
Yeah, well, when they hire you, you don't know what you have to play.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So after the day, you may say, what the hell did I do? I shouldn't have taken this. But you still got paid.
Okay. What was there anything that you would say no to the next time around?
No, not really.
I remember this kind of music from my parents' house. I'm not sure you're on this, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Who's that? What band? David Fogat?
It's called Guitars Unlimited.
West Coast.
Oh, it's West Coast.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so why do you know that?
Well, we know when certain things come out where they're from, you know. They made a couple of records out there with 5 guitars.
Mm-hmm.
It was a rarity to have somebody do that. Yeah, who did it? Well, it's done on the West Coast.
I see. So you were sort of...
Who was that, by the way?
I think it was Tommy Tedesco, maybe.
Yeah, well, I was
It
right.
was called Espresso.
Yeah.
It was actually tough music to
Yeah,
play.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and the woodwinds are going doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tedesco was the Tony Mottola of the West Coast.
I see. Wow. You have any questions? You know, you've done a lot of interviews. In fact, this is our 3rd one. Is there ever a question that nobody asks that you'd like to talk about?
I don't know, I don't think so.
What's your take on jazz education?
That's a good question. I mean, the kids all go to music school today, and what they got out of it, I got more out of not going to school for music. There's a way of doing it.
But you had your uncles.
I had my uncles show me, and I knew the good musicians in Patterson, and I learned from them more than anybody else.
You think that can still happen these days?
Yes.
I wanted to go back to something you said, that when the contractors called the house looking for Bucky, that sometimes they didn't really want to talk to you. Why? How come? Do you know?
Well, they don't want to give the information to the wife, thinking that the wife won't tell the husband.
No, just, no, they made me feel like I didn't know what to
Yeah,
do or
that's
how
right.
to say it or who to get, and they said, no, we'll
Yeah.
call back, or I'll, you know. It didn't happen
When
very
you
often.
hire somebody, you gotta go direct. You know?
Yeah, because they want to
Wow.
know, like, you need to bring your Strat
Yeah.
or
Well,
whatever.
did you ever feel like he might be losing out on work because he wasn't
Oh,
there
no,
to get that
no,
call?
never.
No,
Was this the radio registry?
Yeah.
you called?
yeah. They were all right. They were pretty good.
Yeah.
So after a date ended, if you had a 10 to 1 or something, and you had an hour, did you head for the phones to check in on?
Yeah, I always check that with her.
Nowadays, everybody's, or they're
Yeah,
texting, but
right,
you guys
yeah.
had to find a payphone, right?
That's right.
How did it ever happen before cell phones?
Right. I don't know how they did it.
What's the studio? Do you have a sense of what the studio thing is like now?
It's gone. Studio thing is gone. They make records, but you can buy any record you want on a cheaper on the internet. You know what I mean?
Download it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That put us out of business. You play in a nightclub, and they have something that they call streaming.
Yes.
It goes all over the country.
That's right. You mentioned Smalls, that club.
Yeah, they did it.
You can get on at night and you can watch who's playing there
Yeah.
from wherever you are.
Yeah.
Well, do you think technology has been a blessing or a curse?
It killed us.
A what?
It killed us.
Oh. Well, times march on.
Yeah, that's right. It goes, if you don't play a record day, you play a gig, like I did last night. I enjoy doing that more than I do a record day, playing live.
Okay. But you took, what was it, a couple hours? The gig was 2 or 3 hours.
That's all. Well,
Yeah.
It was 2 hours last night.
But you had to leave an hour and a half before it started.
Oh, yeah, but the weather was bad last
Okay.
night.
But that's part of the life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the... How did you learn all those songs that you know?
Number one, I can fake a lot of them. You know what I mean?
Sort of.
If you're playing the piano and I have to follow you, I can do it.
Okay. But somebody needs to know,
Yeah.
right? Hopefully the bass player, right?
You have to know the songs. I learn the songs according to the composers. You get all the Roger Rogers songs, and you say, hey, he wrote this, he wrote that. Then you build a repertoire. That's the way I learn.
Do you have an opinion why most of the songs from like the Great American Songbook are in flat keys? You know,
I don't know why. Well, what might be when they sell sheet music, it's easier to have something written in the key of F than it is in the key of F sharp.
true. Who wants to play that, right?
There's too many sharps.
Person pick up the music and go, yeah.
Well, that's right. Well, look at Stardust is in D flat, the original key. That's all 5 flats. But when you buy the music, sometimes it's written in C.
Mhm.
Then the fake books come out, and some wise guys put some different chords in there that don't fit.
Uh-huh. The substitutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to say, I've been able to sit beside you a couple times playing, and it's been a big thrill. And I just look at you chomping away there, and there's like nothing like that.
Yeah, that's the whole ball game. That's I think that's the most important thing in any big band was the rhythm guitar. That's what the people dance to.
And sometimes you could hardly hear it.
That's right, you feel it.
You feel it. Well, I remember the last Fall Coming concert we did, and we were playing Dick Hyman's Charts,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and you had a really long piece. It was like 5 or 6 pages long, and I said, Bucky, do you want another stand? And do you remember what you said?
No.
You said basically, nah, I don't want to stand at all. 'Cause you don't need a
You
stand.
don't need it.
Oh, well, anything? Okay, well, this has just been really very interesting for me. And one last thing, see if you remember where this came from.
Is that the Pretty Purdy?
That's you and some other guitar player you know.
John.
And John.
Well, there's drums on it.
No, there's no
No
drums.
drum on it?
That's you playing.
No. Keep it on. Keep it on, yeah.
Okay.
Keep it on, yeah.
Okay.
Put it up a little. Yeah. No drum on that, you're right.
No drummer. John and Bucky live at the Vineyard.
Oh, it's a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
I can't think of who.
John was still in his ute.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, you know, we feel privileged to be in your house.
Oh,
And
Well, I want to get, are
okay,
you ready to have
we are
supper?
ready, and thank you very much.
Supper? Oh, you're
Okay.
quite welcome.